You know, usually when we think of a high-stakes competitive event, whether it's like the World Cup or even some massive culinary championship, there's this really rigid expectation of a perfectly level playing field.
Right. Yeah, you want a controlled environment.
Exactly. You expect strict regulations, pure apples-to-apples comparison. You basically want this sterile laboratory of talent where everyone is operating under the exact same parameters.
Which, I mean, that is exactly how you determine an objective winner. You have to isolate the variables.
But then you step into the Eurovision Song Contest, and it's like that laboratory door doesn't just open, it gets blown completely off its hinges.
Oh, totally destroyed.
Right. We are looking at a competitive landscape today that is less like a controlled experiment and honestly more like a beautifully orchestrated fireworks factory explosion.
That is the perfect way to describe it. I mean, it's the absolute definition of glorious, unpredictable, cross-cultural chaos.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled you're here with us because today is Saturday, May 16th, 2026.
The big day.
The huge day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a fan of music or massive theatrical spectacle or just, intense, unfiltered European drama, you already know exactly what today is. It is the day of the Eurovision Song Contest 2026 Grand Final, broadcasting live right now from Vienna, Austria.
And it is a monumental day. I mean, not just because of the sheer scale of the talent we're going to see tonight, but because this actually marks the 70th anniversary of the contest.
Wow, 70 years.
Yeah, 7 decades of this incredible, highly specific cultural phenomenon.
So, to get you fully prepped for your watch party tonight, we have assembled a massive stack of sources. I mean, we are pulling from the official Eurovision.tv updates. We've got the latest betting odds, analytical news reports from Eurovoix, and naturally...
We had to do it.
We did. We've spent entirely too much time scrolling through the gloriously chaotic, on-the-ground live threads from the Eurovision Reddit community.
The best place for the real drama, honestly. And our mission for this deep dive is to give you a really comprehensive summary of all 25 contestant songs, the underlying musical mechanics of why they work, the intense behind-the-scenes drama, and exactly who the betting favorites are.
Yeah, so by the time we're done here, you are going to be the smartest, most well-informed person in the room tonight.
Yeah.
Because while the 70th anniversary is the big shiny headline, the real story is like the ones that actually decide who lifts that glass microphone, they are found in the weird, unprecedented details.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking about a highly controversial exemption for a live instrument, a vampire warrior princess who is battling a severe backstage virus, and 2 wildly different countries relying on the exact same obscure traditional folk instrument.
It is genuinely a phenomenal year for the weird and the unexpected.
So let's jump right into it at the top of the scoreboard. If you want to know who might actually take the crown tonight from last year's winner, Austria's own JJ, you have to look at the 3 wildly different betting favorites that are currently dominating the conversation.
And they really could not be more distinct from one another. I mean, let's start with the current frontrunner in the odds, which is Finland.
Right.
They are sending Linda Lampenius and Pete Parkkonen with a track called Leichenheiten.
Okay, and here is where it gets absolutely fascinating with Finland. The EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, has granted Linda special permission to play the violin live on stage.
Which is huge.
Not pantomiming, like actually live.
Which is practically unheard of.
Right. Because if you're a casual viewer, you might be thinking, okay, she's playing a violin, so what? But in Eurovision, playing live instruments has been strictly banned since, what, 1999?
Yeah, 1999 when they got rid of the live orchestra.
Exactly. So everything you hear instrumentally on that stage is a pre-recorded backing track. It is a strictly enforced rule. Allowing a live violin is a massive rarity. I mean, it's like bringing a real sword to a laser tag match.
That is, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But we have to look at the why behind that rule to understand just how big of an advantage and honestly a risk this exemption is.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the live instrument ban isn't just some arbitrary creative restriction, right? It is a strict logistical necessity. You have 25 different acts performing tonight. In a live television broadcast of this scale, the crew has roughly 45 seconds between songs to clear the stage, build the next set, and get the artist in position.
Right, and you literally cannot sound check a drum kit, a bass amp, and a string section in 45 seconds. It's impossible.
Exactly. The risk of audio feedback or dead mics or just terrible mixing is astronomical. So, by allowing Finland an isolated live audio channel for an acoustic violin, they're giving them a massive acoustic advantage. A live string instrument brings this level of raw, visceral authenticity. It has, tiny imperfections, breath, the scrape of the bow.
Making a backup track just simply cannot replicate.
Exactly. And that connects with the professional juries and the televoting audience on a much deeper emotional level.
But, I mean, the flip side of that has to be the absolute terror of a live flub. There's zero safety net here. If Linda's finger slips like a millimeter on that fingerboard in front of 200 million people, everyone hears it.
Oh, the risk-reward ratio is completely off the charts. But Finland isn't the only favorite playing a high-stakes game. If we look at the Eurovoix odds, Bulgaria has just surged into the third favorite spot.
Oh, yeah. Deara with her song Bangaranga, which is just this incredibly upbeat, relentless, high-energy dance track. It's the kind of song that practically reaches through the screen and demands you get off your couch.
Totally. And closing the gap to victory right alongside her is Australia. They have bypassed the up-and-comers entirely and brought out the big guns with pop powerhouse Delta Goodrem singing Eclipse.
Okay, I have to ask about this. Because we have an acoustic live violin, a massive club banger, and a global pop star, what is the underlying mechanism here? What does this actually say about how you win this contest?
What's really fascinating is how these three favorites perfectly represent the three distinct time-tested formulas for manipulating the Eurovision voting system.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Finland represents the authentic novelty. Juries love technical skill, like a live violin, and the public loves something that breaks the mold. Bulgaria, on the other hand, is pure televote bait.
Just pure energy.
Exactly. High energy, perfectly choreographed dance tracks, spike adrenaline, making viewers immediately grab their phones to vote.
Right. And then Australia.
Australia is the jury polish strategy. You bring a globally established pop superstar with decades of live TV experience. You guarantee pitch-perfect vocals and radio-friendly polish. It just immediately legitimizes the entry in the eyes of the professional music industry juries. So it's this three-way tug-of-war between raw authenticity, pure energy, and calculated star power.
Wow. Going to be a complete nail-biter to see which strategy actually wins out tonight. But let's move from Finland's live acoustic violin to the other unique musical elements defining tonight's lineup. Because there is an acoustic coincidence happening that I still cannot wrap my head around.
Oh, the bandura phenomenon.
So the bandura, yes.
Yes. Right, so the bandura is a traditional Ukrainian plucked string instrument. Visually, it looks a bit like a lute mixed with a zither, and it has this very distinct, beautiful, almost harp-like resonance.
And it has dozens of strings. Like, it looks incredibly complicated to play. But tonight, not one, but two different entries are heavily featuring it as the core of their instrumentation. Obviously, Ukraine's act, Elileka, is using it in their song Rhythm. That makes total sense as their cultural heritage. But then Greece's artist, Akilis, is also prominently using the Ukrainian bandura for his song Ferto.
Which has certainly raised some eyebrows in the fandom.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on Greece here. I mean, is using a Ukrainian folk instrument a beautiful, organic moment of European cultural exchange? Or is this a highly cynical, strategic, geopolitical play? Are they just trying to win favor from a European crowd that heavily supports Ukraine?
It is a very fair question. And the mechanics of modern pop music suggest it's actually a collision of both. On a purely musical level, there's a massive trend right now of blending heavy electronic synths with hyper-traditional ancient folk instruments to create a unique sonic signature. You want a sound that cuts through the noise of 25 pop songs. The bandura absolutely does that.
Right, but they could have used a traditional Greek instrument like a bouzouki for that exact same effect.
Exactly. And that is where the strategy comes in. Delegations are acutely aware of the optics and the voting blocks. They know what resonates with the voting public. The bandura carries heavy emotional, cultural, and political weight right now. Featuring it inevitably draws a specific kind of attention and, goodwill from the international televote.
Speaking of attention, the administrators behind the scenes must be losing their absolute minds over this next detail. We just mentioned Ukraine's act is named Elika, spelled L-E-L-E-K-A. Well, and an unbelievable coincidence, Croatia is sending an act named Elitek, spelled L-E-L-E-K, with their song Andromeda.
Which is an absolute administrative nightmare.
I can't even imagine.
When you are moving at the speed of live broadcast, having two acts with essentially identical names completely disrupts everything. The graphics team, the international commentators who have to clarify which act they are talking about.
Yeah, and potentially even the casual voter who might download the app and literally click the wrong name.
Exactly. It's hilarious, but it also speaks to this broader blending we are seeing this year. It's not just the instruments or the artist names bleeding into each other, it's the languages.
Oh, the linguistic choices this year are a fascinating shift in how countries approach the contest.
They really are.
Like, look at the United Kingdom. They are historically notorious for just sending standard middle-of-the-road English pop, but this year their act is Luxura, no computer, and they are performing a song with a German title, Eins, zwei, drei, right here in Austria.
Right. And then you have Lithuania's Lion Chica singing Solo Quiero Más, which is completely in Spanish, and Cyprus sending Antigone with a song called Jala, bringing in heavy Arabic linguistic influences.
Wait, why the sudden shift, though? For decades, the conventional wisdom was that if you wanted to win, you translated your song into English, so the majority of the continent could actually understand the lyrics.
And that used to be totally true. But the mechanism of global music consumption has completely changed thanks to TikTok and streaming algorithms.
Oh, interesting.
Music has become fully globalized. Audiences no longer need to understand the literal translation of a lyric to connect with the vibe of a song. In fact, singing in a foreign or cross-pollinated language often adds an element of exoticism and intrigue that a standard English pop song just lacks. The artists are basically treating the entire continent's linguistic heritage as a musical palette.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, we've talked a lot about the audio mechanics, but we really need to transition to the physical reality of what it takes to pull this off. Eurovision is an intense, incredibly grueling live performance. And the human drama behind the scenes of these 25 acts is wild this year. The physical toll is very real.
It really is an endurance sport. You know, people see the 3-minute performance on Saturday night, but they don't see the weeks of 14-hour days, the endless press junkets, the technical rehearsals, and the mandatory jury shows.
We saw the breaking point of that schedule firsthand with Sweden's artist Felicia, who is singing My System. According to the Reddit live threads and the news updates, she literally collapsed.
Yeah.
She passed out right after her performance in the jury show, and they had to rush the medical team in.
Which is terrifying, particularly because the jury show isn't just a practice run. The performance she gave right before passing out is the exact performance that the professional juries use to allocate 50% of the final points. The pressure is immense.
Wow. And she is not the only one dealing with a massive medical hurdle.
Yeah,
Let's talk about Romania.
Oh, yeah.
Alexandra Capitanescu is performing a track called Choke Me. Her whole aesthetic is this incredible, intense, vampire warrior princess vibe. But behind the scenes, her team has been completely decimated.
Her vocal coach actually gave a very candid interview revealing that a severe virus swept through their entire delegation. First, the dancer who plays the, quote, phantom spiked a high fever, and then it just spread to almost everyone else. Apparently, the bass player is the sole survivor.
The last man standing. But seriously, this is a huge crisis for her. Fans meticulously tracking the rehearsals noticed she didn't even attempt her signature high notes during the final run-throughs. She is walking onto the grand final stage tonight, genuinely sick.
And it perfectly illustrates the vulnerability of live television. You can rehearse for 6 months, but biology doesn't care about your broadcast schedule. And unfortunately for the contestants, the EBU rules don't care much either.
Right, which brings us to the technical drama. Czechia's Daniel Ziska, performing Crossroads, suffered a significant technical problem during his set. But the EBU denied him the chance to perform again. Why wouldn't they let him restart if his gear failed?
It comes down to the strict mechanics of the EBU rulebook regarding technical failures. If a microphone drops dead because the host venue's soundboard crashes, that is a broadcast failure, and the artist gets to perform again.
Okay.
But if the issue originates from the delegation's own equipment, like an earpiece monitor malfunctioning or a prop breaking the EBU, considers that a failure of the delegation, not the broadcast. You do not get a second chance.
That is incredibly harsh.
It is, but with a tightly controlled live broadcast window, they simply cannot afford to grant reruns for every technical hiccup.
Well, you know who isn't letting anything get in their way? Malta's Aiden, singing Bella. The Reddit community has been tracking his offstage campaign, and his promotional style is insanely aggressive. He literally bought massive promotional billboards in the capital of Sofia, Bulgaria.
Which is a brilliant manipulation of the televote mechanism.
How so?
because you cannot vote for your own country in Eurovision. So, campaigning heavily in your home country does nothing for your score. Taking your marketing budget and aggressively targeting foreign capitals to drum up international televotes is taking the campaign trail to a whole new, highly literal level.
It's genius. But before we leave the arena floor, I do want to highlight something genuinely innovative and positive. Serbia's act, Lavina, with their song Kraj Mene. They are directly incorporating sign language into the core choreography of their live performance.
It is a fantastic integration. Often, sign language interpretation is relegated to a small box on a secondary broadcast feed. By making it the actual choreography, they ensure the emotional rhythm and narrative of the song reach the deaf and hard of hearing community natively, while also creating a visually striking performance for everyone else.
It's really beautiful. But we do have to pan the camera back now, because while the artists are battling viruses, broken earpieces, and just the pressure of the stage, real-world political tensions are heavily impacting the broadcast outside the arena.
Yeah, the environment surrounding the 2026 contest is incredibly charged.
It really is. The geopolitical cloud hanging over the event revolves heavily around the controversy of Israel's participation with Noam Benton's song, Michelle. And just to be clear to you listening, we're just impartially reporting what is dominating the source material today. The pushback has been severe, with massive protests and highly organized boycotts dominating the news cycle.
Right. A very prominent open letter was published and signed by major music industry figures, including Massive Attack and Brian Eno, explicitly calling for fans to completely boycott the 2026 contest over Israel's involvement.
And this isn't just happening on social media. I mean, it has escalated to the actual broadcast infrastructure. Slovenia's national broadcaster has made the unprecedented decision to pull the live feed, opting to air films about Palestine instead of broadcasting the Eurovision Song Contest.
To understand how massive that is, you really have to understand how Eurovision is funded. The contest relies on participating broadcasters paying a fee and contractually agreeing to air the event. By defying that core participating broadcaster agreement and pulling the live feed, Slovenia's broadcaster is risking massive fines or potentially even a multi-year suspension from the EBU network. It is a highly calculated, significant risk that shows exactly how serious the internal divisions are.
And that division is bleeding into the artists themselves. Croatia's act, Eli Lek, actually issued a direct public statement on Instagram pushing back against comments made by Israel's broadcaster, KSKN. The traditional, bubble where artists ignore the outside world during Eurovision week is completely gone.
Analytically, what we are watching is the undeniable reality that Eurovision is a soft power mechanism. The organizers continually state that it is a non-political music event. But when you put 25 nations on a stage, backed by their national flags, broadcasting to 200 million people, it is fundamentally impossible to separate the music from geopolitics. It acts as a highly visible stage where international relations and public sentiment play out in real time beneath the stage lights.
It really is a massive amount of weight for a song contest to carry. But, as they say, the broadcast clock is ticking and the show must go on. Tonight is the 70th edition, and to make sure you are fully prepared for every single act hitting the stage, we're going to do a rapid-fire breakdown of the rest of the field.
Let's group them by their primary musical mechanism, starting with the upbeat anthems. If you need a sudden spike of adrenaline, these are the countries delivering pure televote energy.
Right. We have Germany with Sarah Engels singing Fire. Belgium is bringing Isala with Dancing on the Ice. Moldova is leaning all the way into their reputation for fun with Satoshi's Viva Moldova. And Norway is sending Jonas Lovivi with a track appropriately titled YA YA.
On the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we have the balladeers. These are the artists bypassing the heavy choreography to aim straight for the jury votes with powerful, emotive vocal control.
Denmark's Søren Torpegaard Lund is performing Furvi Goryem. Albania's Alice is singing Non. France is bringing that classic untouchable elegance with Monroe's Regard in the Elections. Poland has Alice G.A. singing Pray. And then there's Italy's Sal da Vinci with Per Sempre Sì.
Wow, the staging for that one.
Which, by the way, has staging so intensely lit in red, white, and green that the Reddit fans are joking he is effectively turning the stage of Austria into a giant singing caprese salad.
The Eurovision fandom's capacity for instant visual critique is just unmatched. And of course, amidst all the international acts, we have the hometown hero.
Austria's own Cosmo is performing Tanshine. He is bringing heavy electro dance to the host country. The arena is going to absolutely erupt the second he walks out.
And the incredible thing is, the spectacle doesn't even stop once all 25 acts have performed. The voting window, that grueling period where the continent is tallying its scores, is where the 70th anniversary celebration truly kicks into high gear with the interval acts.
It is a massive lineup.
Yeah.
They are doing a giant 14-song mashup featuring absolute legends of the contest, pulling from every era. We are talking everyone from ABBA doing Waterloo all the way up to Kerry G's Cha-Cha-Cha.
They've also brought in Parov Stiller, the pioneer of electro swing, which is a brilliant, highly specific nod to Austria's modern musical exports. Plus, Caesar Sampson will be delivering a tribute by singing Billy Joel's classic, Vienna.
Because they absolutely had to. And finally, last year's winner, JJ, will return to the stage to perform his brand new single, Unknown.
It is a production masterclass. It's designed to honor 7 decades of deeply weird, wonderful history while simultaneously proving exactly where the cutting edge of European music is right now.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We've covered an incredible amount of ground today. You now understand the mechanical risk of Finland's live violin, the strategic cultural weight of the bandura for both Greece and Ukraine, the brutal physical toll sidelining singers from Sweden and Romania, the contractual stakes of the geopolitical boycotts surrounding the broadcast, and the tactical musical styles of all 25 acts. You are officially ready for tonight's grand final.
You have all the underlying context you need to look past the glitter and truly understand the machinery of what you're watching tonight.
But before we let you go, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something we noticed lurking in the footnotes of the news updates. In October of this year, the Junior Eurovision Song Contest 2026 is happening in Malta. And then in November, the highly anticipated inaugural edition of Eurovision Asia is launching in Bangkok, Thailand. Plus, the contest director has openly stated that Canada is officially welcome to join the main event.
Which really raises a fundamental question about the future identity of this entire enterprise. With spin-offs launching in Asia and North American countries being openly invited to the main stage, is the Eurovision Song Contest outgrowing Europe entirely?
It really makes you wonder. If that laboratory door we talked about at the beginning hasn't just been blown off its hinges, but if the entire building is being leveled to make way for something global, are we watching the transition from a quirky continental broadcast into a true worldwide Olympics of music? Enjoy the grand final tonight, keep an eye out for that live violin, and we will see you next time on The Deep Dive.